Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your presenter for today, Mary McKay.
Thanks, Lisa. And hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mariana McKay, and I'm here with you today to dive into the American Community Survey design and methodology. Today, we're going to conduct a little surgery here and open up the ACS to uncover the processes that build the critical pieces that make up the powerful estimates you all use from the ACS. I am relying on the ACS design and methodology report, and I highly encourage you to check out this document yourself. This report gives a detailed view of what critical processes need to happen and how they happen every year to create the estimates the Census Bureau publishes in the ACS. The latest version of this report is from December 2024 and was released earlier this year. As I go through this dissection, I will mention the chapters in the report you may want to check out to learn more about each process. This webinar will cover how the ACS develops its survey sample, how data are collected, how these collected data are prepared, and the data tabulation and dissemination process of the estimates developed from the collected data. Let's start with a brief overview of the ACS. The American Community Survey, or ACS, is the premier source of detailed information about the nation's people and housing. The survey samples approximately 3.5 million addresses each year and 150,000 group quarters residents. These data are collected continuously throughout the year to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates for communities throughout the United States and Puerto Rico. The data cover more than 40 topics. The ACS collects this detailed information each year that was previously collected by the decennial census each decade. ACS data are timely because they are released the year immediately following the year in which they are collected. The ACS creates period estimates, which means they represent the characteristics of the population and housing over a specific data collection period. The ACS releases estimates for 1-year and 5-year periods. After years of extensive testing, the ACS was fully implemented in 2005. The first ACS 1-year data were collected in 2005 and released in 2006. The first 5-year ACS data were collected between 2005 and 2009 and released in 2010. So now that we have briefly discussed the program and its history, I want to share the blueprint for today's discussion. We're going to start with the survey sample development, as in how an address gets selected to be included in the ACS. Then we will go over the ways the ACS collects data from housing units. After that, we will go over the ways that we prepare the data of the responses. And finally, we will highlight how the results of the data preparation are disseminated by the Census Bureau throughout our various data tools and files. Buckled in? Let's start the ride. Now, before we take off, I want to mention something here. The ACS data include both household and group quarters. Group quarters are places where people live or stay in a group living arrangement that is owned or managed by an entity or organization providing housing and/or services for the residents. These include, but are not limited to, college or university student housing, residential treatment centers, skilled nursing facilities, military barracks, and correctional facilities. I want to pause here and just recognize that there are critical differences in the sample selection and data collection for group quarters. I am not going to address those processes with you here today, but fear not. We do have a recorded presentation that dives into the group quarters data and gives an overview of the definitions, data collection process, and products available. You will hear me mention group quarters briefly in other processes, but only when they share the same processes as housing units. Now let's discuss the survey sample development. The master address file is the Census Bureau's official inventory of known housing units, group quarters, and selected non-residential units, which could be public, private, and commercial, in the United States and Puerto Rico. It is the source of addresses used in the ACS. The master address file contains mailing and location address info, geocodes, and other attribute information about the living quarter. A geocoded address is one where a state, county, census tract, and block are identified. The master address file is updated continuously, so it's a dynamic data set. Now, the topologically integrated geographic encoding and referencing system is the digital representation of all census-required map features and related attributes. Some of you may know it as its fierce name of Tiger. So the master address file plus the Tiger system makes up the database used to select the sample for the ACS. This master address file and Tiger database is known as the MTDB. From this database, an extract is provided for the use in the ACS, which is the ACS frame. So consider the frame as the bucket of all possible addresses eligible to be sampled in the ACS. There are few critical requirements. Since the exact extract must be as complete as possible, there are certain filtering rules during its creation to minimize over and under coverage and to obtain an inclusive address list. From the frame, this bucket, the sample is selected. Housing units are sampled from 3,144 counties and county equivalents in the United States and 78 municipios in Puerto Rico. Group quarters are also sampled from the frame, but again, today we are only going to focus on housing units. For more information on this frame development, you will want to see Chapter 3 of the Design and Methodology report. So the ACS extract is essentially a cleaned up bucket of eligible addresses that can be sampled for the ACS. Approximately 3.5 million addresses are sampled from this extract annually. The strategy of sampling here also ensures that a single address is only sampled once every 5 years. Now remember, the ACS is address-based, so if a person moves within that 5-year period, it could be possible that that person is invited to fill out the ACS at both different addresses. The ACS extract bucket gets scooped from twice a year, called Period 1 and Period 2. The process during these two periods are essentially the same. The main difference is that if new addresses are introduced to the cleaned bucket, since the master address file and ACS extract are dynamic identities, so they're updated often, by the time for Period 2, that group of new addresses gets randomly assigned to either the Period 1 or Period 2. Period 1 sampling starts around September, the year before the upcoming data collection. So for 2025 data collection, it began in September of 2024. Period 2 starts around March of data collection year, so March 2025 for 2025 data collection. For your own curiosity, Chapter 4 of the Design and Methodology report details the sample design and selection process. Once these two periods go through the first and second stage sampling, it's time for data collection. So let's hop into the data collection process now. Once the sample is selected, it is time to conduct the data collection, which involves several critical stages to allow respondents to securely input their responses to the questionnaire. Chapter 7 of the Design and Methodology report hones in on the data collection and capture for housing unit addresses that I'm about to highlight here. Once an address falls into the sample, it is not all in the clear yet. Within a sample address, rules are applied to determine who, if anyone, should respond and who, according to the ACS, is considered a resident. Current residence in the ACS refers basically to everyone who is currently living or staying at a sample address, except for someone who is there for only a short period of time, defined in the context of the ACS as an expected stay of 2 consecutive months or less, unless those short-term people have nowhere else to go. So let's say you are visiting with a friend whose house was selected to be in the ACS. You would not be a current resident if you were leaving after a few weeks of your visit. But let's say you signed a 2-year lease and moved in with your friend and moved in yesterday. Since you are planning to stay for at least the duration of your 2-year lease, you would be considered a current resident. Review Chapter 6 of the Design and Methodology report for the full details regarding residence rules. Before we talk about how we collect the data, let's chat briefly about the questionnaire itself. The questionnaire is organized into 4 sections that cover housing and person questions. The first verifies basic address information, determines the occupancy status of the housing unit, and identifies who should be interviewed as part of the ACS household. The second section collects basic demographic information. The third collects housing information, and the fourth and final collects detailed population data. If you were ever curious about how a question gets added to the ACS, you can check out a recording of a presentation my colleague conducted in April that shares details. Like I just said, the questionnaire is organized into housing and person questions, which cover 4 broad categories of topics: social, economic, housing, and demographic. I want to highlight some of the topics within these sections. Social characteristics include topics such as educational attainment, marital status, place of birth, and veteran status. Economic characteristics include such topics as employment status, health insurance, and income. The ACS also collects basic demographic characteristics such as sex, age, race, and Hispanic origin. Housing characteristics include topics such as computer and internet use and housing costs. I do want to mention that we have a few new housing topics from new questions added in 2025. These include electric vehicles, solar panels, and public sewer connectivity. Now that we know what gets asked on the questionnaire, let's dive into how that information is collected. We have already established who is considered a resident, so there are 3 response modes available to them to complete the survey. They include online, by mail, or by a computer-assisted interviewing with a field representative. The overall sample, which we previously described, is divided into monthly independent samples, which are called panels. Data collection for each panel takes place over a 3-month period, broken up into 2 data collection phases: self-response and non-response follow-up. Typically, for most housing units, the first phase of data collection includes an invitation for the household to respond online, which is mailed to the sample address. If the household does not respond online, a paper questionnaire is sent for the household to complete and return by mail. The first self-response phase lasts roughly 8 weeks or 2 months. In the final 3rd month of the data collection for a panel, the Census Bureau creates a subsample of sample addresses that have not responded or unmailable addresses in the sample that are selected for computer-assisted interviewing. During the second phase for each panel, if any of the addresses in the specific subsample submits an online or paper survey response, they are removed from the workload. Whether response is collected via internet, paper, or through non-response follow-up, the questions asked remain the same. Let's dive briefly into the 2 data collection phases: self-response and non-response follow-up. The first data collection phase, self-response, includes internet and paper. For this phase, the sampled address for the entire data collection are reviewed to determine if they have enough information sufficient for mailing. Mailable addresses in the U.S. include those that have a complete address. Unmailable addresses such as post office or P.O. boxes, or addresses missing components of their full address are considered unmailable. These addresses are not thrown out though. They are simply ineligible for this data collection phase and become part of the second phase we will discuss on the next slide. Back to self-response. The ACS sends multiple mailings to the mailable sampled addresses. Remember, the sample is divided into monthly panels, so this is happening constantly throughout the data collection process, not all at once in the beginning of the year for the entire sample. These mailings encourage households to respond to the survey via the internet or via a paper questionnaire. Most paper and internet responses are received within 5 weeks after the first mailing is sent. Each panel is given 3 months to have their responses accepted, but after a specified cutoff date for each panel, late returns are not included in the dataset. As for the data collection mode itself, if a household chooses to respond via the internet, they are able to log into the website and securely submit their responses. The second option for self-response is the paper questionnaire. A booklet-style form provides the same exact survey questions. Once completed, respondents can mail it to our National Processing Center in Indiana, where it will be scanned and safely logged. This paper questionnaire is sent if no response is received via internet after a certain set time. Now, if no response, internet or paper, is received, these remaining addresses become non-respondents and are put into a new group of sampled addresses now eligible for the second phase of data collection, non-response follow-up, which we're going to discuss next. So this second data collection phase, non-response follow-up, is conducted through the personal visit or telephone. As stated before, as responses are returned, those addresses are removed from the workload. Outstanding responses and unmailable addresses are added to create a new subsample that are eligible for computer-assisted personal interviewing. Not every non-response or unmailable address can be reached during the second data collection phase due to cost, which is why the method of selecting a subsample is employed. Once selected within this new, smaller subsample, a mailable address is sent an additional letter encouraging them to complete the survey via the internet. Cases sampled for non-response follow-up are divided throughout the country to the Census Bureau's 6 regional offices. These regional offices manage the work and assign field representatives to go collect responses. If a phone number is available, the field representatives will first reach out through a call. Unmailable addresses are not eligible for this option because field representatives have to verify the location of the address in person. If a phone call does not yield contact after a number of attempts, field representatives must make a personal visit. Visits are helpful because they can also determine whether a housing unit exists or if it is occupied or not. So we have gone through the data collection process from establishing who is considered a current resident, to the structure of the questionnaire itself, to the organization of the sample into panels, to the 2 data collection phases, self-response and non-response follow-up. Now let's get a glimpse into how data are prepared and weighted in anticipation for data releases. So as we are going through the ACS journey, we are now to the stage of preparing and processing the data that are collected. It is here where group quarters data are added back into the mix and are subject to the same process. Here you can review Chapter 10 of the Design and Methodology report for more details. Perhaps unsurprisingly, these next few steps in getting the ACS results ready for data users of all levels to explore are extremely complex and technical. Again, Chapter 10 of the Design and Methodology report is a great place to go to get into the details of data preparation. Today, I'm going to go through this stage at a very broad level. Remember, every month data are collected and received. This means the process is continuous. So these are the processes I'm going to go over within this data preparation stage. Like I said, there are a lot of critical details within these processes that I will not be diving into today. As the data are collected by the 2 modes, self-response or non-response follow-up, they are processed accordingly to the mode they are submitted. Once they go through their respective intake process, where, for an example, a check of sufficient responses is made, they are organized into one large bucket to continue the preparation process. This bucket is known as the Data Collation Process Files, or DCP. By the end of the data collection year, this bucket will have been updated 12 times and becomes the critical source for the next step in getting the data ready. In the data preparation stage, several key processes occur. First, coding must occur for select variables that require it. Then an assessment of responses to determine if they are inconsistent, complete, or duplicate is made. Then edits to complete responses or created variables is done. And disclosure avoidance confirms confidentiality of respondents. And finally, weighting ensures that the sample responses are representative of the overall frame. There are a set of questions on the questionnaire that offer respondents the chance to write in responses. Computers speak a different language than you or I, so putting the responses in number format allows for data to be machine readable. Some topics that need right encoding include language, health insurance, internet service, industry and occupation, and geography-based topics like place of birth or place of work. The chart here displays the items that require this step. Although the process differs slightly by topic, the general idea is that Census Bureau staff review these responses and assign them a code using a combination of automated and clerical coding processes. Most of the person characteristics are matched to a data dictionary that contains common responses with a code attached to each. For example, the field of degree question on the ACS questionnaire says, quote, "This question focuses on the person's bachelor's degree. Please print below the specific majors of any bachelor's degree this person has received." So if I, as a respondent, wrote sociology on the questionnaire, it would be auto-assigned a code of 5507. Responses to the industry and occupation questions tend to be a little bit more complex and thus processed using a different system with higher rates of clerical coding. Geocoding is the process of assigning a standardized code of geographic locations. The write-in responses for the questions used to develop these estimates are assessed, and depending on the variable, different levels are applied. For example, place of birth is assigned a U.S. state, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, a specified U.S. island area, or a foreign country where the respondents were born. The next step in data preparation is the edit input process. This involves creating files that analyze several key components of the data in that big bucket of all the collected data. First, the response type: occupied, temporarily occupied, vacant, delete, or non-interview. And the number of people in a household are assessed to figure out if there are any inconsistencies. Second, each return is assessed to determine if there are enough data to consider it complete. And third, if there are duplicate returns, an assessment is made to determine which one will be used. Now, the next stage is edits and imputation. This begins after the files created in the input file process, and that's the step before this, are generated and verified. The main steps are editing and imputation, generating recoded variables, reviewing edit results, and creating input files for data products. In this first step, the data file that is being worked on here still contains blanks and some inconsistencies. With missing data, there is a statistical process called imputation that helps fill in those holes to create a data set that is usable and simple. The rules designed for this step ensure that the final edited data are consistent, as complete as possible, and ready for tabulation. The next step calculates new variables based on response data. This is done to make commonly used complex variables more accessible and to reduce errors that could occur if trying to recode yourself. So one example here could be poverty status. The ACS does not explicitly ask about poverty status, so it's in this stage that it is created using respondent income information and household composition. After the imputations and recodes are completed, Census Bureau subject matter analysts review the new files and make sure there are no problems or inconsistencies in the data. Finally, once the files are approved by the subject matter analyst, the files are ready to serve as inputs to this disclosure avoidance and weighting operations, the final steps in the data preparation process. Moving right along, disclosure avoidance is a crucial part of the process in the ACS data preparation to ensure that respondent confidentiality is protected. This means that some data products are modified or suppressed. For example, one disclosure avoidance technique involves selecting a sample of households and matching on a set of selected key variables with households in neighboring geographic areas that have similar characteristics, such as same number of adults and same number of children. Since this swap is done within a small geographic area, there is no effect on the overall totals for an area or among totals that include data from multiple areas. So along with Chapter 13 of the Design and Methodology Report, the accuracy of the data documents provide more information on confidentiality protections in the ACS. Weighting is employed to bring the characteristics of the sample close to the true representation of the full population. Going way back to the beginning of this presentation, I briefly mentioned that there are certain filtering rules during the creation of the sample frame to minimize over and under coverage and to obtain an inclusive address list. To address for these different rules or sampling rates, weighting ensures that the sample responses are representative of the sample frame itself. Additionally, an adjustment is necessary to capture the housing units that were selected and never responded. And finally, adjustments for coverage error minimize any deficiencies that may occur as a result of the frame itself or varying response rates. If weighting is a process you want to dive into deeper, check out Chapter 11 of the Design and Methodology report. Now that we've gone through the intense process of preparing the data, it is time to share with the public and all you data users. There are another series of steps in this process that must be addressed. They include variance estimation, data tabulation, application of data release rules, and then finally, data dissemination. The ACS is a survey, which means that the sample we randomly select to respond to the questionnaire provides data that is representative of an entire population. This is not possible without a level of uncertainty and the variance estimation step. This uncertainty is known in the statistical world as sampling error. To help users understand the impact of sampling error on data reliability, we provide a margin of error for each ACS estimate. Margins of error provide users with a measure of uncertainty for each estimate, which can inform how they use and interpret the estimate. The Census Bureau uses a 90% confidence level as its standard. ACS estimates published on data.census.gov have margins of error calculated at that 90% confidence level. If you would like to dive deeper into this, Chapter 12 of the Design and Methodology report is a great place to go. After the intensive processes within data preparation are complete and the variances are estimated, it is time to create the data products for release. These include tables, reports, and files highlighting the social, economic, housing, and demographic characteristics. These data products cover geographic areas of all sizes within the United States and Puerto Rico. More than 1,000 tables are published every year. If you would like to know more specifically about the tables released with ACS estimates, I have another recorded webinar you'll want to check out that my other colleague did earlier this year, as well as Chapter 13 of the Design and Methodology report. Now that the data products have been tabulated, it is time for one final check in the data product creation to ensure information about individual respondents is protected and the estimates that do not meet the statistical standards are not published. The data release rules focus primarily on geographic area population thresholds, subpopulation size, and data quality filtering requirements. Population thresholds establish restrictions for the 1 year and 1 year supplemental estimates. For 1 year, geographies with populations of 65,000 or more are available, and for 1 year supplemental estimates, the threshold is 20,000 or more. 5-year estimates are not subject to geographic-based population thresholds. Data products that focus on specific subpopulations have additional thresholds to further protect privacy and ensure data quality. Data quality filtering, which is also applicable to just the 1 year and 1 year supplemental estimates, is implemented to ensure that the ACS data meet the Census Bureau's statistical standards for reliability. For example, if more than half of the estimates in a single table are not statistically different from 0, the table is not published. Finally, the Census Bureau Disclosure Review Board, or DRB, establishes additional rules such as minimum unweighted sample requirements for certain types of estimates, such as medians, means, or aggregates. It is now time to get the data products out to the public. For every data release, there is a release schedule and a plan to disseminate the data for use. This includes disseminating the data across numerous platforms such as data.census.gov, the application programming interface, the summary file, and other key tools developed and maintained by the Census Bureau. Typically, the data release season begins around September, the calendar year after data collection. For more information about this process, check out Chapter 14 of the Design and Methodology Report. I want to now very briefly go over a few of the platforms that you can access ACS data. There are numerous tools developed and maintained by the Census Bureau that publishes the ACS estimates. This is just a few of those tools, but I do want to point out that data.census.gov is the Census Bureau's main data dissemination platform, and it is a great place to explore all the data tables produced with ACS estimates. The ACS website is also a great place to see the collection of data tables and data tools available with ACS estimates. Specifically, there are two pages under the ACS data page, which are data tables and data tools, which provide critical information you might be interested in. These web pages will introduce you to the most popular tools and data products with descriptions and links for each. The tables page will provide definitions of each type of table as well as links to the tools where those products can be found. As I prepare to bid you farewell, I just want to pitch you a few ways to keep in touch with us. One way is by sharing your ACS data story. This allows data enthusiasts across the country to share the creative ways they are using ACS data to make a difference in their community. If you are someone who has used ACS data for your community, organization, or business, consider submitting your ACS story today. If you aren't already, please consider becoming a member of the ACS Data Users Group. This group includes a website and online community with over 7,000 members where you can share messages, materials, and announcements related to the survey. Membership is free and open to any interested ACS data user of any skill level. You can also sign up for and manage email updates from us here at the ACS. Our monthly events and updates email will alert you when new materials are available, and you'll stay updated on our data releases. Finally, no matter where you are in your ACS data journey, we are here to help you. If you have a question about the ACS, do not hesitate to send us an email at acso.users.support@census.gov, and you will be connected to my colleagues and I to help you. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I hope you enjoyed this little ACS surgery. Best of luck as you access ACS data and all the resources and tools we have for you to explore.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.